Okay, I want to use this as a backdrop. I'm at Ripley's, believe it or not, down here in San Antonio, and this is a little Egyptian setup they've got here, and it's about a mummified falcon that they have here. And here's a scan of it. And here's the actual falcon. I don't know if you can see it too good. It's really, really dark right here. And here's an x-ray of the falcon. Want to use this as a backdrop to talk about something else. They have a lot of the timelines wrong in history. And I want to talk about some other things about Egyptology that you may or may not know about. So, they found cocoa leaves and tobacco leaves in mummy wrappings. Specifically, Tutankhamun had some. So, well, what does that mean? Well, it means this. Cocoa leaves were and are indigenous to South America. Tobacco leaves are indigenous to North America. So, that means that the pharaohs, that people of ancient Egypt had contact with the New World. So that throws the timeline off by a whole bunch. If you look at the writings of Thor Heyerdahl, he wrote a book called the Kon-Tiki, and in that he talks about how in a small boat that the people of Polynesia colonized the Pacific. And he also did a lesser known work called the Ra Expeditions, where he made a reed boat as close as he could the way the Egyptians did, and he crossed the Atlantic. Called the Ra Expeditions. Thor Heyerdahl, he was a real famous explorer and scientist that did his own research. So ancient Egypt was in contact with North America. There's actually a theory that the gold mines of Ophir were actually in America. May or may not be, but they were here because they had tobacco leaves in the mummy wraps and they had cocoa leaves. So for sure they were in North America. Little known fact, the Smithsonian kind of covers it up, but there have been Egyptian artifacts found in the Grand Canyon. They deny it, but plenty of evidence that they were initially found there. Another thing I want to talk about is, and this is kind of controversial, but it's got plenty of backing to it. In Isaiah, it mentions that an altar has been built to the Lord at the midst of Egypt and at the borders thereof. So if you look at an old map of Egypt, the pharaoh's headdress, there was Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and that was commonly divided at where the cataracts began. And what was at the cataracts? The Great Pyramids. So the large conical one was for Upper Egypt, and the Lower Egypt one had a crown that was kind of shaped like this, and they would combine them together when you unified Lower and Upper Egypt. So that strange saying in the book of Isaiah that God made an altar in Egypt at the borders and at the midst thereof doesn't make much sense unless you consider at the midst would be the center of Egypt, and at the borders thereof would be at the borders of the upper and lower kingdoms. So look that in mind. Everybody goes, well, pyramid is not an altar, it's a tomb. Blah blah blah. But the word pyramid comes from fire. Remember, it had a covering of Turla limestone all over it, and the Muslims, as they're wont to do, tore it all off to make the mosque in Cairo. And anyway, check out that verse in Isaiah, and it'll come to you that God had an altar made in the land of Egypt, in the midst of it, at the borders thereof, and it'll come to you. Anyway, check it out. Thank you. Bye.